Hi folks, how are you all doing? It's Paula here with just a bit of an update, mainly about YouTube. For those of you who tend to access or want to access audiovisual cultures via YouTube, and I do that mainly for the auto captions, I think they're helpful for quite a lot of people. There are going to be some changes coming through. So at the moment, if you are following on YouTube, you'll be aware that it's my personal account that the podcast episodes are coming through on a special dedicated playlist. And so I'm really just letting you know that from November 2021, episodes, preview audiograms and behind the scenes videos are now going to be on AVC's own dedicated channel. That channel's been kicking around for a while actually, but it hasn't got anything on it. And the reason for that is I just felt for a really long time that it would be easier to build up an audience if it was with my own stuff, because I try to make videos that are usually based on my research or lectures that I've given before while I was teaching, and I've still got quite a big archive of all of that to get through, and so that will be continuing. But why I'm doing this now is Acast, where I host the podcast. They started this a while ago, but I've only really just figured out how to use it. They have a function where YouTube videos for the episode will automatically generate. And I think just the amount of time and work and energy that will save me, it's just too big an opportunity really to miss out on. As soon as the episodes are live after an hour or so, the auto captions will be there. So I think that's probably just an easier way to go. And I think they look quite slick because it's just a dark background with the image that's attached to the episode and the title and everything. So if you listen to the likes of The Guilty Feminist or Urbanistica, you'll see that their YouTube videos have started to look like that because they use Acast as well. So I'm in pretty good company there. And the reason why I've moved it over onto AVC's dedicated channel is that, you know, Acast wants quite a lot of information and power over your YouTube channel. So I thought it's better to give it the podcast stuff so that it wouldn't be able to go anywhere near my own videos. And in time, if the Audiovisual Cultures account gains some traction, everything should become a lot more findable. If you go searching for it, it's just buried underneath loads of other stuff. So the link for the channel is in the show notes for this audio wherever you're listening. So it would be great if you could just head over there and subscribe if you have a YouTube account, and that'll just help us build up those numbers. For anybody who's already subscribed to my own account, you'll still get content coming through on there. But if you're there really just for the podcast, please do head over to the podcast zone one that's linked here and subscribe and follow there. That'd be great. And you can put your bell on so that it'll notify you every time there's a new episode coming through, if those are helpful. And as I say, I'll just move over from now on any new behind the scenes content or any new audiograms that I make, they'll come through onto there as well. So that'll be probably from about episode 105. I'll also be posting that link onto our socials. So I'd really appreciate some shares if you can, if you're following us on those. We're AV Cultures Pod on just about all of the socials, so if you could give us a shout there, that'd be awesome. And if you're not already subscribed and you like the sound of those other videos that I make, my own YouTube is going to be linked here in the show notes as well. I'd just really appreciate any subscribes and watches that you give those. The lectures and research papers that I put on there, they'll have slides with them, so they're a lot more visual than you would tend to get with anything for the podcast. That tends to just be a card image, and so you can see that it's just better to use the Acast version if possible to save the time it takes to make those up and render them and everything. And it's a lot less storage on my hard drives, which are very quickly filling up these days. for other things, to have just a bit of a chat while we're here, I think it would be good to just sound you out. You know, I'd love to know where people are listening from. I can see in my iCast analytics that we're in quite a few countries. I think it was about 17 different countries the last time I checked. But it'd be really lovely to hear from some of you who are all over the place, and I'd love to hear what you think of the show and how you think it's going and what sort of thing you would love to hear on it. A lot of the guests recently have been people who've got in touch with me. I haven't gone looking for them. There are loads of people. I have a massive list of people that I'm working through who I would really love to speak to in the podcast, and people don't always have time, but I hope they know they're always welcome. But if any of you listening think that there's somebody who would be really great to have on the show, please put them in touch with me or write to me yourself and nominate them. I would love to try and address that. We have had ideas in the past from people, suggestions for films that they'd like to hear discussed or topics that they feel that we should touch on. I do keep a note of them. I haven't forgotten about them. I think usually when it's to do with, say, discussing a film, there's not a lot I can do if I can't quite access it or I can't find somebody else to talk about it with me. If you've been following for a while, and I suppose for those of you who don't know, who've maybe just joined in the past year or so, when Audiovisual Cultures started, my regular co-host was Andrew Shiel. He's a senior lecturer at Newcastle University, and his workload has just been incredibly intense since the pandemic. If anybody has told you that, lectures, just everything moved online and they haven't done their job since then, I can assure you, living with someone who's in that kind of a job, that is absolutely not the case. He's never worked more or harder in his life. He's just been really up against it. Even just sitting recording this, I'm doing this at a time when it's quite late in the evening and he's still not home from work because he's trying to get that much done so that he can just have one day off this weekend. So, you know, that's kind of where we're at, and this is late 2021 when really we're in the UK, we're apparently supposed to be emerging from the pandemic, so it hasn't really improved for him on his end at all. Anyway, so Andrew hasn't been able to do the podcast for quite a long time now. It's been over a year since he last appeared when we did the Tamasha episodes with the really wonderful Arno Jishri. That's a really lovely episode and it's really informative about Hindi cinema, Indian cinema. And so I'd really encourage you to go back and find that one because it's lovely. It's a really fun episode and just so informative. And we're missing Arno Jish. She had to move back to India and we are missing her. I hope she gets back to the UK at some point because she's just an awesome human. Yeah, so I'm on my own, so I haven't really been doing movie discussions that much, and I'm really happy to go back to doing those. The shape of this podcast was never locked in any way. We've done lots of different kinds of formats. If you've been listening recently, hopefully you've been aware of episode 103, Remembering Sally Madge, and that was really beautiful. A very big undertaking to get a lot of people involved, and what's in that episode is only a small amount of what we all recorded, and there is a repository for the full-length recordings that everybody made that I hope you'll go and listen to and check out that episode. I think it's a really special one for quite a few of us, but it's just an example of how this show can be in different formats and that we're really not closed and it doesn't have to be an interview show, and I'd love to do more let's watch a movie and chat about it, you know, and see what we can see and see what we can learn from it and have some ideas flowing. I'd really love to do some sort of panel show at some point. There's all sorts of things I'd love to do, and when you're working on it entirely alone, it can just be a bit of a slog trying to organise these things. And then as I say, I've had quite a lot of people contact me wanting to be on the show, and I think because very often, it's very rare I say no to anyone. And to be honest, I never say no to anyone. If it's something I don't really like the sound of and that I don't think is appropriate, I tend just not to answer them. Maybe that's a bit rude, but I think it's kinder than just saying no. well, I don't know. The jury's out on that one. Maybe I'm not being very nice, but I can't really think of a kind way of saying, I think what you do is a load of nonsense. So I tend not to go near that stuff. And I mean, I'm probably talking about the likes of influencers and people who make a living off making other people feel bad. I just don't want to platform that sort of stuff on this show. I don't want to knowingly platform anything that's potentially harmful to anyone. But it'd be good to hear what listeners think, and it'd be good to have people getting involved. At its heart, this is an educational show. We should be learning things. We should be learning together. I want it to be an inclusive space for people to learn, a comfortable place for people to learn, and hopefully a bit of a joyful place for people to learn, because there's a lot going on in this world, and every time I try to just see what's happening out there, there's just such awful things happening, and it's really overwhelming, and you feel pretty helpless about not being able to do anything, and all we can each do is our own wee bit in our own wee corner. And some people do really huge, phenomenal things, and some of us can only manage quite small, seemingly insignificant things. But I think if you're just there and you're having a go and you're trying and you're opening your mind and you're learning and you're listening to others' experiences, then that's a really good thing. And I used to use the hashtag culture is growth to really latch onto the idea of the more scientific or biological meaning of culture, where things grow and sprout and develop and evolve. I really want to try and build on that and see, well, what kind of a resource can this possibly be to someone, and can this help encourage people out there to improve their media literacy, for example, at a time when, there's a lot of lies out there, and it's really hard to navigate that and negotiate with that, and it's really hard to think critically when you maybe have never been shown how, or you've never been encouraged to think independently and to have intellectual curiosity about stuff. So I suppose this is, again, a resource where I really hope that in a small way each time we can show people a range of ways that you can start to do that, and you can start to think about things in a bit more depth and see where it all connects up. It's all meaningful in some way. I'm going to stop rambling at you, probably just rambling because I'm a bit lonely. I'm just going to be honest with this as well, as I'm just sitting here talking to myself because I had a very last minute cancellation for a recording. So I was all set up to do a recording. That hasn't happened. So it always feels a bit anticlimactic when you've spent a whole afternoon researching somebody, and it also took ages to get the appointment made in the first place, and then just so last minute they say, no, I'm not doing it, and let's reschedule, you sort it out. So I think I'm just in a chatty mood because I've been building myself up to hours to talk to a stranger, and the stranger had to cancel very last minute. And it's not a problem because this is somebody who's a jobbing actor in a very tough industry, and if a job comes up you have to take it. I totally get that, and I am frighteningly available. Those kinds of opportunities are so terribly rare for me that I pretty much never need to cancel on anyone, so you just have to take it on the chin, don't you? I've rambled on enough at you, so I hope those updates are quite useful. I mean, we're pretty much sorted for the rest of this calendar year, and we're looking ahead already that any new recordings are going to fall into 2022. We've got some really exciting stuff coming up, and I've got a list of people I want to approach because I think they do amazing work and you all need to hear about them. There's lots of people I've invited on the podcast before and they've said yes, but don't know when I can do it, and maybe I should start chasing some of those people up because I think they're really great. Yeah, so I just hope that you're doing okay. You're so welcome to get in touch, really. Yeah, just look after yourselves wherever you are and whatever you're doing.